So a few years ago, I say a few years ago, back last month or last year, I did um, a video where I ranked Quentin Tarantino's movies. And it's been about a year, I think, or so since I did that, because I did a few of these ranking videos. But I've been going through all of his movies again, and I can't remember how I ranked them, but I think the ranking has changed. So I'm going to do a ranking video, because I don't really tend to do ranking videos anymore, but I've got an actual rank screen now. So we've got a ranking from Tier Maker, and I thought I'd go through this and explain why I've chosen to put these films at this point. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to rank Tarantino's movies again, but in a better sort of way, I guess you could say. So we've got 5 different sections. We've got the GOAT, we've got cracking, we've got pretty good, and then we've got written by, great, and then written by, meh. So those will be 3 different films. Those will be From Dusk Till Dawn, Natural Born Killers, and True Romance. So one of them it doesn't matter where it's going. As you can see, there is no rubbish or meh, because let's face it, most of his movies are pretty on the ball and pretty good. Even his worst films are still better than most movies. So I'm going to kick it off with Pulp Fiction. Now, Pulp Fiction, amazing movie. So easy to watch, so easy to sort of... It's the kind of film that you can be flicking through the channels and find it on ITV or something halfway through and watch it and have no issues whatsoever. Great script, co-written by Roger Avary. Awesome cast: John Travolta, Sam Jackson, Uma Thurman, Bruce Willis, Harvey Keitel is in it. Who else is there? Ving Rhames. Just such a good cast for such a good follow-up to Reservoir Dogs. Like, as a second movie, like, you expect a second movie to be good, but you don't expect a second movie to be Pulp Fiction. Like, Tim Roth is in it at the beginning, and Amanda Plummer, just so good. The dialogue is amazing. The structure of the plot and how it jumps back and forth in a non-linear fashion. I don't think people had really seen that before, and I think it kind of opened up a world for cinema, for filmmakers. I mean, Reservoir Dogs was influential, 100% influential, but for some reason, Pulp Fiction is the film that gave birth to the sort of the sub-genre of Tarantino-esque movies. So you ended up with like these cool, hip crime thrillers, like Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead, 10 Days in the Valley, or 2 Days in the Valley. If it wasn't for Pulp Fiction, you wouldn't have things like Boondock Saints. So it kind of opened this world of these sort of cool, hip crime movies, which doesn't really make sense, because Pulp Fiction is essentially just a cool, hip version of 70s crime movies and the black and white, like really cool as hell Japanese movies from the 60s and 70s, 50s and the 60s, especially things by Seijun Suzuki, stuff like Tokyo Killer? Tokyo Drifter, and even like Kurosawa stuff, which is really cool. I don't know, it's just really, really good, and I can't really think of where else to put it other than in the GOAT section, because it is a phenomenal movie. Christopher Walken's monologue about the watch, it's just so good, so damn good. Pulp Fiction, the GOAT. Next up is Reservoir Dogs. Reservoir Dogs is a film. It has some issues. Let's not beat around the bush. It has some issues. It doesn't have many issues because it's Reservoir Dogs. It is a film made by a filmmaker who has no real filmmaking experience apart from an unfinished black and white 16mm film that never got finished, 45 minutes long, I think it is, called My Best Friend's Birthday, which Tarantino is well known as being Tarantino's first proper film, even though it was never finished. It's a black and white movie. He plays a DJ that kind of apes this sort of like Teddy Boy style. But Reservoir Dogs, there's a really cool story behind how Reservoir Dogs came to be, and how it became Tarantino's first movie. So when he was working in Video Archives, he was working with Roger Avary. Roger Avary, as you know, is the man behind Killing Zoe and Rules of Attraction, and wrote the screenplay for the Silent Hill movie, and he's done some other stuff since. He's also an Oscar winner for co-writing Pulp Fiction. So Roger Avary wrote a script called The Open Road back in the days when they were working in Video Archives, and he couldn't finish it. He couldn't finish it. So he gave it to Tarantino to finish or to rewrite, and basically Tarantino completely rewrote the whole thing, and then split the film into two, essentially, writing True Romance and Natural Born Killers. And he originally envisioned directing True Romance and was going to sell Natural Born Killers. What ended up happening was that he ended up writing Reservoir Dogs as well, and sold True Romance for, I believe it was $30,000, and sold Natural Born Killers for $10,000. The scripts now, not the movies, the scripts. Natural Born Killers was purchased by Oliver Stone, who completely rewrote the movie to the point where Tarantino wanted his name taken off because it bared no resemblance to the script that he originally wrote. Excuse me. And obviously, Tony Scott directed True Romance. But Reservoir Dogs was the film that he was going to make because it was cheap to make. It's only in only in one location. You could make it cheap, shoot it on 16mm. You got introduced to Lawrence Bender, who is the producer of every Tarantino film up to, I want to say, Django Unchained. I don't think he produced Django, but I think he came back and produced Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So Reservoir Dogs was the film that he was going to make. He was introduced to Lawrence Bender, who was the producer. Lawrence Bender knew someone who knew Harvey Keitel's wife and got the script to her to give to Harvey Keitel. And Harvey Keitel loved the script and wanted to do it. So you've got a name wanting to do, a big name at the time, 1990, wanting to do your script. Therefore, he was able to gain some funding, and Reservoir Dogs ended up shooting on a budget of $1.2 million and essentially changed cinema forever. If you think in the 90s was, the 80s was sort of the studio letting loose. Monster movies, gore effects, sex comedies. It was a smorgasbord of genre movies, and Reservoir Dogs was a crime thriller about a heist movie where you don't see the heist, but you see the fallout after the heist. And a lot of people said, "Oh, he's just ripping off the entirety of City on Fire, the Hong Kong action cop movie from the late 80s, 88 or 89, something like that. And there are elements of City on Fire in Reservoir Dogs, but only really in the last 10 minutes or so. So if you watch City on Fire, which is a great movie, I think it was Ringo Lam directed that one. I think it was Ringo Lam. Chow Yun-fat's in it. Great, fantastic movie. If you watch that, you'll see that Reservoir Dogs literally only borrows some parts of the ending, and that's about it. And even Tarantino has said, well, my movie's completely different from City on Fire, because City on Fire isn't about the aftermath of a heist. It includes the heist. And the only part that he borrowed, he even admitted he borrowed, was the last 10 minutes or so. But when you've never made a film properly before, and your first movie is Reservoir fucking Dogs, you instantly belong in the GOAT. Because without Reservoir Dogs doing what it did, 99.9% of the films we have now, we probably would never have had. So it's hugely influential in its filmmaking way. I mean, it kind of reintroduced the writer-director. We had the writers and the writer-director in the 1970s. Then that sort of fell off in the 1980s. And then Tarantino brought it back in the 90s with Reservoir Dogs. And if it wasn't for Reservoir Dogs, we wouldn't have Clerks, we wouldn't have Slacker, we wouldn't have Dazed and Confused, we wouldn't have all these independent movies that kind of became huge hits in the early 90s. So it, for what it did for cinema, and the fact that it probably has Tarantino's best dialogue, most naturalistic dialogue, Reservoir Dogs has to be in the GOAT. So, then we get on to one that he wrote. I just talked a little bit about this. Natural Born Killers, starring Woody Harrelson and Juliette Lewis, Robert Downey Jr. I do not like this film. I've read the original Tarantino script. It's very, very different to the final script that was completely rewritten by Oliver Stone. It's a focus mainly on Robert Downey Jr.'s Wayne Gale character, and Mickey and Mallory Knox are more of a sort of side part of that script, whereas Oliver Stone's rewrite changes it to be a focus more on Mickey and Mallory Knox, and Wayne Gale is more sort of like fly on the wall, if you know what I mean. Like, I'm not a fan of this film. I think it's overindulgent. I don't like how it's shot, which is weird because it's shot by Robert Richardson, who did the cinematography for the later Tarantino movies. And I just don't like it. I'm not fussed on it at all. So it's going in the meh section. Then we have True Romance, the second script that Tarantino sold, and one that he did retain screenwriter credit on because it wasn't rewritten. Unlike Natural Born Killers, where he ended up just retaining a story credit. True Romance is amazing. It's probably my favorite Tarantino script. I think there's just something inherently cool about it. And just the performances in it as well, from Christian Slater's Clarence, Patricia Arquette as Alabama. You've got Michael Rappaport. Brad Pitt is in it as Floyd, the stoner roommate. You've got Bronson Pinchot from Beverly Hills Cop. Saul Rubinek playing a fantastic pastiche of Joel Silver. It's gorgeously shot. You've also got Chris Penn and Tom Sizemore as the cops. Christopher Walken as the gangster, and Dennis Hopper as Clarence's dad. Also not forgetting Gary Oldman as Drexel Spivey at the beginning, as well as Samuel Jackson. It's just the cast is incredible. The screenplay is incredible. The dialogue is incredible. And not Ridley Scott, Tony Scott's direction, it makes it look hot. It has this really cool sort of way of filming, because it goes from being really cold and blue and just kind of drab in the beginning, and then when they go to California, to Hollywood, the whole thing changes. It changes to hot, sand, yellow, orange. It's such a great transition between the cold blue and then the warm orange. And I've noticed that in most Tony Scott movies, is how he shoots heat is phenomenal. If you watch things like Top Gun, or you watch Beverly Hills Cop 2, you will see what I mean. I've said this before. Tony Scott shoots sunsets better than anyone else. And it's true. Because it's not directed by Tarantino, I can't put it in GOAT. But it is written. So it goes in the written by great section. And another film that also goes in the written by great section is From Dusk Till Dawn. From Dusk Till Dawn is in my top 5 movies of all time. I can't put it in the GOAT section because he only wrote it. He didn't direct it. That was Robert Rodriguez directed it. Did a pretty decent job as well. But the screenplay for From Dusk Till Dawn is just fun. It is a fun genre piece. It is a mashup of crime road movie like, I don't know, Red Rock West or something like that, mixed with early 1980s vampire action. I can't really explain it. There's just something so incredibly fun about it. It has great script. It has great characters, with George Clooney playing Seth Gecko. He also has Harvey Keitel playing Jacob Fuller, who is the priest that has lost his faith in God. Not the best person to have when you're surrounded by vampires. You've got Danny Trejo. You've got Juliette Lewis is in it. Tarantino himself plays Richie Gecko, who is the brother of Seth. He is a psycho rapist killer, which... shock horror, Tarantino played that guy. But the beginning as well, the opening, proves what Tarantino said about Michael Parks as being one of the, if not the greatest actor living at the time. I mean, sadly, Michael Parks has passed away. Now, if you watch the opening of From Dusk Till Dawn and you watch Michael Parks' performance as Earl McGraw, you will see that Parks delivers the dialogue in such a naturalistic way that it doesn't seem like he's reciting dialogue from a script. The way he acts and the way, like, his facial expressions, his movements, they all seem like it's just a bloke talking. And how normal people would converse. Maybe not so much John Hawkes' character. Although John Hawkes' character, the dialogue that John Hawkes has and his performance is also fantastic. But Michael Parks' Earl McGraw is just phenomenal. And you'll see him pop up again in Kill Bill Volume 1 and Kill Bill Volume 2 and in Death Proof. But From Dusk Till Dawn, I love it. Like I said, it's in my top 5 movies of all time. And it's my favourite George Clooney film. I love it. So that's going in written by great. I would love to put it in the GOAT, but like I said, it is only written by, it's not directed. Then we have Jackie Brown. So Jackie Brown Tarantino's third film as a writer-director is not an original screenplay. It is an adaptation. Well, it is an original screenplay, but it's an adaptation of a Elmore. Is it Elmore Leonard? I think it's Elmore Leonard novel. Certain things have been changed in it to like the name of Jackie Brown. It was originally Jackie something else, but they changed it or Tarantino changed it so he could have that sort of exploitation reference to it, because obviously if you've seen Jackie Brown, you know that Pam Grier plays the central character, the main character. Pam Grier was a big, huge star in the 1970s with the blaxploitation movies like Foxy Brown and what was the other one? Kofi, White Mama, Black Mama, or Black Mama, White Mama, and being such a huge exploitation star and having Foxy Brown on her CV, like I said, that being a huge exploitation fan favorite and a big film for cult film enthusiasts back in the day. Clearly, once you get Pam Grier on board as your main character, you're gonna have to call it Jackie Brown, because it's got that reference to that film and to Pam Grier herself, the character. Not Pam Grier the character, the character that Pam Grier plays. Again, another phenomenal cast. Pam Grier, Sam Jackson, who else is in it? Robert De Niro, Bridget Fonda, Robert Forster. Robert Forster, I was watching a documentary the other day, and Robert Forster his career had sort of dipped, and he wasn't really getting much work, and Tarantino wrote the part of Max Cherry for Robert Forster. He wanted Robert Forster, but he wasn't sure if he was going to be able to get him. And he met with Forster at a a restaurant in Los Angeles, and handed him a script and said he wanted him to do it. Now, if Tarantino hands you a script, bear in mind Tarantino has already had two huge, phenomenally successful movies with Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs, and also some success with True Romance and some controversy with Natural Born Killers, as well as obviously having some sort of middling success with From Dusk Till Dawn, because I don't think that was a big film when it came out. If Tarantino hands you a script and asks you to be in his movie, you do not turn it down, which is why I don't understand why Will Smith turned down Django Unchained. But Jackie Brown is very good. It's Tarantino at his most mature as a writer. It is a slow burn crime thriller with phenomenal dialogue, incredible performances, and even though it's quite long, and like I said, it's slow. It's a slow burn. It's a slow burn crime drama. It feels like a writer-director at the top of his game. Bear in mind, this is only his third film as a filmmaker, as a film director. But it feels like he's at the top of his game. It's only let down by some minor pacing issues, I think. I think it could have been cut a little bit shorter. It's almost 3 hours long, and it's not Heat. Heat is a near 3 hour movie, and Heat has incredible pacing. I love Jackie Brown, but I can't put it in GOAT because, like I said, I think it's such a great movie, but it's not a film that I can be like, oh, I really fancy watching Jackie Brown. I really fancy watching Reservoir Dogs. I really fancy watching Pulp Fiction because they're easy movies to watch. Jackie Brown is a lot harder to watch because of its pacing and because of how slow the film is. So it's going in cracking anyway, because it's still an amazing movie. Then we had the break between 1997 and 2001 when Kill Bill Volume 1 came out. Kill Bill Volume 1 is a great, again, like Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, is a great fun, it's a great fun movie. Originally, Tarantino wanted to do one huge 5-hour epic, I guess you could say, with Volume 1 and Volume 2 completely together. There is a version of that ran festivals called The Whole Bloody Affair, which I believe includes the uncut Japanese Crazy 88 fight, where it's in colour, it's not black and white, unlike in the West, because it was too violent. But Kill Bill Volume 1 is just a really solid action movie which homages classic action films of the 70s and 80s, specifically Hong Kong and Japanese cinema. You can tell that Tarantino is a student of kung fu movies by watching Kill Bill Volume 1. Kill Bill Volume 1 is very, very good. However, I watched it the other night and I noticed, and this is something that has followed through all of the films that Tarantino has made since this movie. Unlike the first 3 films, so Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, Jackie Brown, the dialogue that runs now through Kill Bill all the way up until Once Upon a Time in Hollywood has this weird tone to it. It's still amazing dialogue, don't get me wrong, it is still amazing dialogue, but it is written in an odd cartoon way. Whereas you watch the original 3 films that he did, you will see that the dialogue has this naturalistic sort of banter back and forth. Most specifically in Reservoir Dogs. And I think it's down to the delivery of the dialogue from the actors. So in Reservoir Dogs, you had Michael Madsen and Harvey Keitel, Steve Buscemi, Chris Penn, and Tim Roth, and they're all delivering this dialogue that is so superbly written, but they're delivering it in a way that doesn't feel like that they're reading it. Whereas if you watch Kill Bill Volume 1, there are moments in that where it feels like Uma Thurman is reciting lines off paper, and this is run all the way through every single film he has done since, and it's a little bit jarring. I really do enjoy Kill Bill Volume 1. I watched it the other night, thoroughly enjoyed it, but it was something that did stand out to me. So Kill Bill Volume 1 is going into cracking. Kill Bill Volume 2 is an odd movie because the tone of the film is completely different to the tone of the first film. It's a longer film for a start. Kill Bill Volume 1 is a tight, fun, straight-up action movie with obviously a non-linear narrative. Same goes for Kill Bill Volume 2 with the narrative. But Kill Bill Volume 2, if Kill Bill Volume 1 is a throwback to kung fu movies and samurai movies and stuff like that, Kill Bill Volume 2 is a homage to spaghetti westerns. Now, had the film played as one continual movie and not being cut into 2 films, I think it would have put a lot of people off, because Kill Bill Volume 2 is not as good as Kill Bill Volume 1. It's a little bit flabby. Again, the dialogue seems like it's being read, not recited, and it's just a less enjoyable version, and it's not one that I rewatch too often. Like Jackie Brown and Kill Bill Volume 1, I can rewatch, no problem. It's been a while since I've seen Jackie Brown, but like I said, I watched Kill Bill Volume 1 the other night, thoroughly enjoyed it. Kill Bill Volume 2 I haven't watched yet because it's good, but it could have been better, and I think it desperately needed some trimming down. So Kill Bill Volume 2 is going in the pretty good section. So then we get to Death Proof, and I made my thoughts clear on Death Proof on the podcast I did the other day. I enjoy Death Proof. It's a fun little movie. It's massively flawed when it comes to the dialogue and its pacing and certain things, but it has amazing cinematography. It has great central performance. Well, not central performance, but it has a great villain performance by Kurt Russell as Stuntman Mike. But the film is essentially about nothing. Nothing really happens. Nothing goes from A to B to A to B. Well, it does. It kind of... The first half and the second half feel disjointed. But it kind of makes up for it in the car chase at the end. I don't know. There's something about it that... Like, I really like it, but at the same time, I know that there's issues with it. So, Death Proof is going into the pretty good section. It's not cracking, and it's not goat. And I haven't got a meh section because, like I said, I still do enjoy it. And then we get to, where are we? Inglourious Basterds. Tarantino's homage to... not only spaghetti westerns, which is a bit of an odd thing to homage in a World War II movie, but also the old school 60s and 70s men on a mission movies about groups of soldiers who are dropped behind enemy lines to take out certain things. Films like Guns of the Navarone and The Dirty Dozen, those type of movies, those men on a mission movies. When you really think about it, that's exactly the plot of Saving Private Ryan. It's about a group of men on a mission. But Inglourious Basterds, I adore Inglourious Basterds. I adore war movies. I am currently trying to rewrite my World War II script, get past more than I have before. Fingers crossed. Even though I've been trying for 15 years, and there's something about World War II that lends itself so well to this type of film. Now, this is more it's Tarantino's love letter to film, old film. You know that the man is a master of film history and an expert in film history when he makes a film like Inglourious Basterds. Inglourious Basterds, the title itself, comes from a 1978, I think it is, Italian World War II film called Inglourious Basterds, directed by Enzo G. Castellari. And whereas a lot of people thought that this was going to be a remake, it's not actually a remake. It is, in fact, a completely different film that just borrows some minor elements from that film, mainly the men on a mission and the title. The mission that the men go on in the original Inglourious Basterds is completely different to what Aldo Raine and his bastards go on during Tarantino's Inglourious Basterds. The biggest standout for this film is Christoph Waltz, who was the first actor in a Tarantino film to win an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. He was also the second actor to win an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor in a Tarantino movie for the film that came after Inglourious Basterds. Inglourious Basterds has some incredible set pieces. The set piece in the cellar bar, tavern, I guess, and the opening sequence between Hans Lander and Monsieur Lepetit, the French farmer, is one of the most intense 15 minutes of screen time I have ever seen, and it's no wonder that Christoph Waltz managed to win the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for that scene alone. It's worth watching. It's some of Tarantino's best writing. 30% of the film is in English, the rest of it is in French, Italian, and German, which is very odd for a Hollywood movie to do something like that, to have a big name actor like Brad Pitt lead your movie and have him only essentially in 30% of the film. I'm going to have a drink. And having watched it again the other day, it stood out to me that I don't think he'll ever make another film like that again. Because I think that this was sort of like the end of his comic book run, if you know what I mean. When I say comic book run, I'm taking in something such as Kill Bill Volume 1, Kill Bill Volume 2, Death Proof, and Inglourious Basterds as a group of comic book type movies. Yes, you could sort of include Django Unchained in that world, but with something like Inglourious Basterds and the other three movies, they are heightened versions of a period in time. Well, Inglourious Basterds is a heightened version of a period in time. But Kill Bill Volume 1 and Volume 2 and Death Proof are comic book movies. It's difficult to get across as what I'm trying to say. But I think Inglourious Basterds works very, very well, not only as a action movie, but also a war drama, and just one of the most superbly shot films I have ever seen. There are moments of cinematography in Inglourious Basterds which are outrageously incredible. And yeah, it's an amazing film. The fact that there is a heavy reliance on not heavy reliance, but heavy focus more on Shoshana's character than it is on Aldo and the rest of the bastards is quite a daring thing for Tarantino to do. He doesn't necessarily... He writes strong female characters. You can see that in Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2 and in Jackie Brown. But there's something about Shoshana in Inglourious Basterds that proves that he is a better writer than, I guess, Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2 and Death Proof prove. And I think with the following three films after this, we see that his dialogue has sort of evolved, but also has the same style of delivery as Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2. Inglourious Basterds is GOAT material. It really is. It's such an incredible film, and it's such a well-written film that that's the only place it deserves to be, especially for Christoph Waltz's performance. The one thing I will say, and I'll say this for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as well, is Brad Pitt's performances in both films are probably the two worst performances of his career. I do not like his line delivery in either film, and Brad Pitt is a good actor. If you watch Seven, watch 12 Monkeys, or like 7 Years in Tibet, like, he is a very good actor. Even the Ad Astra, the science fiction film, he's very good in that as well. But for some reason, in Inglourious Basterds and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, his performances just don't hit the spot. They just don't hit. I don't like his line delivery. I don't think he should have won Best Supporting Actor for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Yes, he's good in it, but is he win an Oscar good? Not a fucking chance. But taking that out, the rest of Inglourious Basterds is GOAT level. And the same has to be said for Django Unchained. Django Unchained, and I am currently halfway through watching. I put it on late last night. And they've got to Candyland, and now obviously the second half of the film is going to take off, where they try and buy Broomhilda and stuff. But for me, Django Unchained kind of acts the same way as Pulp Fiction, is where if I'm flicking through a channel and it's on and it's halfway through, I can watch it no problem and not worry about not having seen the first half. It's the same. There's a lot of films that do that, but specifically Django Unchained and Pulp Fiction, and Hot Fuzz again is another one as well, which is very easy to just watch halfway through if you're flicking through TV channels. I love Django Unchained. I think as a Western, or as what he called a Southern, as a Western, it incorporates a lot of things that we used to see in classic Westerns. You have the bounty hunters, you have the hero, who becomes the reluctant hero, should I say, being Django in the movie, and Dr. King Schultz being a mentor, sort of Django being Daniel LaRusso to Schultz's Mr. Miyagi, if you will. And it also includes probably one of the greatest villains in the last 20 years, since Heath Ledger played the Joker in The Dark Knight. Calvin Candy, Leonardo DiCaprio as Calvin Candy, is 100% one of the most despicable human beings that has ever been put on screen. He is a horrendously horrible individual, and he's played perfectly by Leonardo DiCaprio. And I was never a fan of Leonardo DiCaprio. He was always the pretty boy. He was always Jack from Jack from Titanic. He was Romeo from Romeo and Juliet. He was the pretty boy. If you even in Sam Raimi's Quick and the Dead, another really great Western, which is massively underrated, he was the pretty boy in that. But there was a point in his career where everything kind of changed, and he went from being a movie star to being a film star. Well, he went from being a movie star to being an actor. And that was The Departed. Martin Scorsese's The Departed. Now, I never liked, like I said, I was never really a fan of Leonardo DiCaprio. And then he made The Departed, where he came across as a more adult individual, if you know what I mean. It's very hard. It's a weird way of explaining it, but there was two films that changed my perception on him as an actor, and that was The Departed and Inception, Christopher Nolan's Inception. And then since that point, he has progressively gotten better and deserves his place as one of the greatest one of our best living actors. And Calvin Candy in this proves that he can not just play the pretty boy or the good guy or the hero, but he can play a villain like there's no tomorrow. And just for that, and Samuel L. Jackson playing the most, just probably the vilest character of his career as Stephen, the Calvin Candy's aide. I'm not going to say words because they are racist words, and I'm not a racist. Samuel L. Jackson playing one of the most despicable black people that's ever been put on screen. It's so good. The script is great. The cinematography, again by Robert Richardson, is gorgeous. The music, the uses of music, already famous music, and some music that was created for it. Also, the use of Ennio Morricone music is always going to work. So, Django Unchained, again, like Inglourious Basterds, has to go in GOAT because it is amazing. And now we've got two left. We have The Hateful Eight. Now, the first time I saw The Hateful Eight, I didn't really care much for it. I found it to be a boring talkathon that wasted its 17mm cinematography or film, cinematography, by setting the film in a barn for almost 3 hours. And I think I put it quite low down when I ranked it before, and having rewatched it this week, I still think that it kind of wasted the 70mm camera on shooting a film indoors when it opens with gorgeous shots in 70mm ultra Panavision CinemaScope and of like Wyoming or Colorado or whatever it's supposed to be. I think it's Colorado. I think it was shot in Colorado. And you see the snow and you see the cross, and the camera pans down to reveal the cross and the stagecoach in the distance. It's a gorgeous looking film. Even the indoor scenes, and I'm not going to say like the film is brilliantly shot, because it is brilliantly shot, but I still think that using Panavision Ultra Panavision 70mm to shoot everything indoors kind of defeats the whole point of using Panavision Ultra 70mm in the first place. Whereas something like Django Unchained would have benefited massively from being shot in 70mm. But obviously, it's still a good looking film. Now, when it comes to the Hateful Eight, like I said, when I first saw it, I thought it was a bit slow, a bit boring, and it felt like a play that was just shot on film. Now, having rewatched it, holy crap, I was wrong. This is a meticulously written whodunit from the get-go. Like, there are moments in it where you're trying to figure out who is working with who. And there are little moments. I think it's probably Samuel L. Jackson's best performance in a Tarantino movie. He's very good as Steven in Django Unchained. But I think the Hateful Eight, where he plays Marquis Warren, I think gives him the meatiest role that he's ever had, and he essentially carries the entire film on his back. That's not to say that the other actors aren't doing their jobs, because the other actors are great. Walton Goggins is fucking amazing in it. Jennifer Jason Leigh, again, like Tarantino has this thing of sort of resurrecting careers. And Jennifer Jason Leigh is phenomenal. Like, I haven't seen Jennifer Jason Leigh in a film for a long, long time. And so watching her in this, it's like her performance is so good as Daisy Domergue. And it's understandable that she got nominated for an Oscar for it as Best Supporting Actress. Kurt Russell is this... Like, Kurt Russell is great in everything. No matter what he's in, he's great because he's Kurt Russell. But in this, I feel like he's sort of wasted. A bit like his character in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but that's more of a bit part. He's meant to be one of the main characters in The Hateful Eight. But I think he's sort of wasted in the role of John Ruth the Hangman. But still, I mean, he gives a great performance anyway. But what I was saying about the dialogue in Kill Bill up to Inglourious Basterds is that there are moments in The Hateful Eight, specifically from Kurt Russell, where it feels like he's not natural. It feels like he's reading the lines instead of performing the lines, or reading the dialogue instead of performing the dialogue, the way it comes out and the way he says certain things. Whereas someone like Samuel L. Jackson, if you watch Pulp Fiction and how he delivers certain lines of dialogue, that is how Marquis Warren speaks in The Hateful Eight. The same as Jules Winfield speaks in Pulp Fiction. and sort of how he speaks in Django Unchained as well. So, I mean, that's fine, but, like, Sam Jackson carries this entire movie. There's very small things where he's kind of not sure of where he is. Well, he knows where he is, but he's not sure of the people, and so he's always on guard, and he's always picking up little things and noticing little things and just being really wary of his surroundings. And it's a credit to Samuel L. Jackson's performance in that he is able to do that with that character, because it gives Marquis Warren a deeper character, if you know what I mean. It gives him a deeper sort of... He gives the performance of that character much more deeper meaning by the little eye looks and just making just facial expressions to show that he knows something is not right. And this is only in the first half of the movie. The film's like 3 hours long. It's just really, really, really well thought out, well performed, well written. But it does still feel like a play. But a really fucking good play. So, after not really being 100% on it the first time I watched it, and then kind of liking it a bit more the second time I watched it, now I've seen it like 4 times, I can confidently put it under cracking. Because it's a cracking movie. It is a very, very good film. And now we come to the final one, which is Tarantino's last film that he wrote and directed, which is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, again, like every single Tarantino movie, has flaws. Every film is going to have a flaw. The biggest flaw with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is the Sharon Tate storyline. Now, if you took that out and took out the Manson thing, what we'd have is a very, very, very detailed biography of a washed-up actor whose career is sort of reignited by going to a foreign country to make spaghetti westerns or spaghetti war films, and also a look at his friend and stuntman who may or may not be a murderer. But including the whole Sharon Tate, Charles Manson thing kind of drops the film quality a little bit. That's not to say that Margot Robbie isn't good as Sharon Tate. It kind of feels tacked on, and if I was to edit that film, I would remove the majority of those sequences with Sharon Tate, because the only reason they're in there is to build up to the final 10 minutes of the film and to include the Spahn Ranch or the Spahn Ranch sequence where we're introduced to characters who are, well, real life characters who were the ones that unfortunately killed Sharon Tate and the person she was with at the time. I mean, Roman Polanski was away filming, if I remember rightly. Now, if you removed those sections, you'd also have a tighter film, and it would be a better exploration of Rick Dalton and Cliff Booth as actor and stuntman. But as it stands, the film is amazing. As a love letter to 1960s Hollywood and the film industry in general, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is probably one of the best films to showcase that era. Another really good film that showcases 1950s Hollywood is LA Confidential, or 1940s Hollywood is LA Confidential. But Once Upon a Time in Hollywood gets a lot of things spot on. And had it solely focused on Rick Dalton as a sort of autobiography or biography of a fictional actor and how he went from being on top to being on the bottom, but also being a very good actor, but also one that has lost his confidence due to his show. His show being cancelled, Bounty Law being cancelled, and finding himself being sort of typecast in Western shows. I think it would have been a far more interesting film, but obviously it's a Tarantino movie, so you have to have the gut-wrenching, horrendously violent ending, which I don't see anything wrong with, and I can understand why he chose to include like the Spahn Ranch and the Sharon Tate stuff, because obviously the film is set in 1969. Those events actually happened in Hollywood during that period of time, or during that year. But I think removing them would have made the film a lot tighter and a lot better. But having said that, I still absolutely adore this movie. I put it at my number one film when I ranked it the first time. And on a rewatch, I've seen it 4 times now. And on rewatch, the Sharon Tate sequences do kind of ruin what could have been a perfect movie. So it can't go in GOAT anymore. It can't go in the greatest of all time. It's gorgeously shot. The soundtrack is phenomenal. Leonardo DiCaprio as Rick Dalton is incredible. Cliff Booth is a good character. It's an interesting character. There's a lot of stuff about Cliff that we don't necessarily know that I would love to know, which is actually in the novel that Tarantino wrote. However, like I said with Inglourious Basterds, those 2 performances are probably Brad Pitt's worst performances as an actor. Yet he won Best Supporting Actor for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, whereas he should have won Best Supporting Actor or Best Supporting Actor. He should have won it for 7. But he wasn't. I don't think he was nominated for that at 7. He probably should have won it for 12 Monkeys as well. But I can't, in all good graces, put it in GOAT. It has to go in Kraken. It's just not at that level on multiple rewatches that I can honestly put it at GOAT level with Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, Inglourious Basterds, and Django Unchained. But that's not to say that the Kraken level with Jackie Brown, Kill Bill Volume 1, Hateful Eight, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is bad. Because there's not a single bad movie here. Apart from, obviously this is opinion, but apart from Natural Born Killers, every other film is just great fun. But I can't, in all consciousness, put Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in GOAT because it suffers from padding and scenes that don't really add much to the film. But there we go. That's it. That's my ranking. I don't even know if this is recorded the whole thing. It probably hasn't. But we'll soon see. I have tried to do this ranking via a share screen on OBS, so I don't know if this has worked. But that's my ranking. Written by Meh. Natural Born Killers. Written by great True Romance from Dusk Till Dawn. Pretty good. Directed by Kill Bill Volume 2, Death Proof. Cracking, Jackie Brown, Kill Bill Volume 1, Hateful Eight, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. GOAT. Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, Inglourious Basterds, and Django Unchained. So there we go. So that is me done. Thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you all soon. So as usual, I'm going to give you a salute. I'm going to throw up the peace sign, and I'm going to tell you I am out.